call to order the meeting of the Maplewood Park and Rec Commission. We will start with a roll call off to my right. If you'd state your name, turn your light on and state your name.
It's Rick Brandon.
Greg Brandon.
Dorothy Molstead.
Bruce Roman.
Terry Millette.
Nikki Villavicencio.
Thank you. Can I have an approval of the agenda for tonight?
Move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. If you've had a chance to look at the minutes, I'm going to ask for an approval of the minutes of the February 27th meeting. Any changes, additions? If not, I'll ask for approval. Is there a motion to approve?
Wait a minute, I just spotted something.
Oh,
Election of officers, you have me making a motion, and I wasn't at the meeting.
well, in spirit. Okay. Do they go back to the transcript and make the correction then?
Chair, members of the commission, I'll have our admin look it over again and make the necessary changes.
Okay, anything else that you spot? Can I have a motion to approve the corrected minutes of the February 27th meeting?
Move
make
to
a
approve
motion.
the amended minutes.
I have a motion,
I'll
second?
second it. yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving along, bing, bing, bing.
And
New business, Audra?
actually, before we start, chair, members of the commission, we have someone with us tonight. Our honor guest is Sylvia Neblett. She is our one of our newest council members, and she is our new liaison to the Parks and Rec Commission. So she was coming tonight just to introduce herself and let you get to see her face and get to know her. And she has another engagement at 6:30, but she made time for us today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you very much. Commission, good evening. I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to working with you in the coming years. So I'm just glad to be here, and I expect to learn a lot from you all. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, even if briefly, this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
And Audra, are you?
Yep, chair, members of the commission. Tonight we have City Manager Melinda Coleman is here to just go over the statute and lay out the rules for conducting public meetings and just the way to conduct business and meetings with the city. And she's going around to all the commissions to just talk about the things to do, not to do, and just to go over the ins and outs of the right way to conduct meetings. And so I'm going to turn over to City Manager Melinda, and she will be doing a presentation on what we should be doing.
Thank you, Audra. I'm really happy to be here tonight. It's nice to see all of you, and I'd like to just take a moment to thank you personally for the service that you give to the City of Maplewood. The City Council really relies on your work that you do before items get to them. And I know that you all invest a lot of your free time on behalf of the city, and we're really grateful for that, so thank you. Tonight, I'm going to talk about, as Audra mentioned, how to conduct open and public meetings. These are sort of the rules to go by, a little guidebook for you to use when having public meetings. And for some of you, this might be old news, but for some of you, we do have some newer members that this might actually help. We want to make sure that we're all conducting business according to state law and our practices here at the city. And Sylvia, I'm sorry, you heard a little bit of, this is a little bit different, but we also had this presentation with the City Council because we have new members on the council as well. So with that, I'm going to do the presentation on the open public meeting piece, and then I actually have an ask of you. And so I want to engage with you a little bit on a question the council asked me to ask of you. And then if there's any other training topics or areas that you would like to hear more about or learn more about, I'd be open to hearing what those are as well. So thank you.
Yep, you can just,
Yep, there we go. So first of all, what is an open meeting law? The basic idea about that is that meetings of public bodies should be open to the public. There is no statutory definition of meeting, but the courts have generally said that a meeting is a gathering of a quorum of public officials to discuss, decide, or receive information on matters over which they have authority. So those are typically your agenda items, and you are a quorum this evening. I believe you have one other member, is that right? Yeah, okay. So that's what we're here for. The purpose of the open meeting law is to protect the public's right to be informed, allows the public to detect improper influence. So it's a way to be transparent in conducting your business. And it gives the public a chance to provide input on areas of interest. The basic requirements are that anytime a public meets, it must do two things: give advance notice and allow the public to attend. There are some penalties associated with folks who don't stay in line with the public meeting laws. There are city attorney fees for a person suing, and those can be very expensive, up to $13,000. There's attorney fees for the city's attorney. There's also bad public relations when that happens, and there's increased scrutiny from the public and the media. And that's one of the things that if we start going down that slope of having not obeying the public meeting law, we do attract the attention of others, and you do not want to be on Care 11 or Channel 5 or any of those saying, you know, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Personally, a commissioner can be fined if you're found that you have violated the open meeting law. You personally can be fined $300 for each time that happens. And after 3 separate intentional violations, you do forfeit your office. Some common questions about this. Can we have a closed meeting? Generally speaking, for boards such as the Park and Rec Commission, there really wouldn't be too many reasons for you to close a meeting. The only thing I could think of is back in the day when we were buying open space, we might have had some input from you on the cost of land. Real estate deals are one of the things that we can close a meeting for. But for the most part, I don't believe, I've been familiar with the need for any of our commissions to have a closed meeting. That usually happens at the council level. Do we have to record closed meetings? If you were to have one, yes, you do have to do that, except for attorney-client privilege types of business. The open meeting law does apply to more than city council. It applies to any committee, subcommittee, board, or commission that's voted on and appointed by the city council. So one of the newer things that has been happening has to do with technology. The state statutes are a little bit behind in some of this about how we use technology and how it can be a violation of the open meeting law depending on how it's used. There currently is not state statute language, but there are currently people and committees working on this at the legislature and with the League of Minnesota Cities. In fact, the Assistant City Manager, Mike Funk, is on a committee working on this kind of thing because it's just not real clear. What we believe through some other lawsuits and other things is that technology does apply to the open meeting law. And that includes email, Facebook, blogs, Twitter, MySpace, that kind of thing. So technology and the open meeting law, does this apply to these kinds of technology? And our attorney and most folks at the League of Minnesota Cities say yes, that social media and technology do fall under the same rules. So the bottom line is to use caution when forwarding or replying or posting emails. The League of Minnesota Cities, of which all the cities in Minnesota are members of, pretty much, their opinion is that advisory board violated open meeting laws by exchanging email messages relating to official activities of the board. So in other words, I think you have 7 members, is that right?
Correct.
So if you had 4 people communicating with each other, you would be violating the open meeting law. So if Dorothy emailed Nikki and then Nikki emailed Terry and Terry emailed Bruce, or Dorothy emailed all 3 of you at the same time, that would be an open meeting law violation. The best advice is to work through your staff liaison, and she can communicate to all of you. So if you have an issue that's of concern to the Park Commission, the best thing to do is to let Audra know, and she will communicate that to the board, to all of you at the same time. That keeps everything clean. There's a few other little things here to talk about. You can use email, but one of the things that I just suggested is the one-way communication is best. Limit your email use and really be cautious. One of the things that I've told council members and I tell everybody is if you're using email, just assume that it's highly possible that somebody's going to ask for your emails. We spend a great deal of time. We have basically a half-time person who her job is to respond to public data requests. And typically those data requests will look like, I want all the emails that Audra sent to Craig. Or it can be anything. I want all the email communications between Audra and all the board members. So there are people that every day we have requests for data. And so it's really important that when you're doing email, think of it this way. Is it something that you would want the press to have? Because if you keep that in mind, it's best to have one-way communication or call Audra. Or call, if you have an issue, you can always call me too, but basically, just be careful. So can you have a meeting where one or more members participate from a different location by phone or other means? And the answer is that you can. You can do that by phone or other electronic means if a health pandemic or a disaster-related emergency is happening. And you might be involved in something like that if we had a big storm, or we might ask for help from lots of different people, or an interactive TV or video. And we have Skyped in council members in the past. I don't remember doing it at the board level, but the one thing that is challenging about that is you have to do it in a public place. So that gets a little weird. For example, Councilmember Smith was out of town. He was in, I think, San Francisco or somewhere, and he had to go to the lobby because you can't have it in your room because his room isn't public. So it gets a little dicey. So we try not to really do that unless there's an urgent issue that we needed his vote on or something. So that's how you can do that. Electronic communication through email, listservs, or other methods, and I talked about this, but it could violate the open meeting law if you have a quorum of people communicating together, and if you're discussing city business. So if you're all communicating about the garden club meeting next week or something, that doesn't affect us, that's okay. You can have social interactions, but cannot be discussing city business. Another consideration is called a serial meeting, and I've talked about that. That's where you get into that chain, and that can be either through, even a phone call is a serial meeting. So if Dorothy called Bruce and then she called Terry, then she called Nikki, that's a serial meeting. So you really can't do that. It really would likely be an open meeting law violation if you were trying to avoid a public hearing or having the public conversation or to reach some kind of agreement before a meeting. And if there's ever a reason where you have a sensitive issue to discuss, the best way to do that is to work through Audra and set up one-on-one or have 2 of you come in or 1 of you come in at a time to meet with her to discuss something that would be of a serious or sensitive nature. Other considerations before and after meetings. So, you just don't want to have a quorum of the commission before and after a meeting to discuss city business. This would likely violate the open meeting law if it's not noticed and it's not open to the public. Social gatherings are okay. It happens where, you might be all invited to a social gathering of some sort. And that's okay if there's more than a quorum there, just don't talk about city business. And I know that gets hard because that's what you have in common with each other. But the best thing to do is if you find yourself in a situation where there's 4 or more of you gathered around talking about something, one of you go do something else. Get a cup of coffee or talk to a different person. There really is no violation if you're not discussing city business. So, how do we conduct business as a commission? First, generally, how you conduct business is left to the commission to regulate your procedures and style. Commission should adopt rules of procedure, which I believe you have. There are no default rules. The mayor's handbook, from the League of Minnesota Cities, or Robert's Rule of Order, or other rules can fit the need of the commission. And I think staff has worked with you on policy and procedures. We have those that have been adopted and approved by the council. When conducting meetings, the commission should adopt bylaws, which you have, and even if meetings are running smoothly, you should have rules that fit the needs of your commission. Commissioners should review bylaws at the end of the year, and I think we did a recap of those about a year ago where we actually went in and kind of changed those. In terms of conducting meetings, it's really good practice to have an agenda, and all of our boards do a good job of making sure that there's an agenda, and I believe Audra works with the chair to make sure that those agendas are approved and ready to go forward for your review, and that is our practice with all of our commissions. Regular meetings are not required, although we do have regularly scheduled meetings, and we cancel them if we don't have business or if we don't have a quorum. You could have special meetings. I don't know if you've ever had those. You might. Maybe when you were looking at Wakefield Park or some things, you might have had a special meeting to invite people into an open house or that kind of thing. Those are allowed. But you do have to give notice to the public, and you need to tell the public what you're going to talk about, and then that's what you have to talk about. You don't add things to special meetings. Emergency meetings are treated the same way. Notice has to be given to the public. Those have a lesser standard. We can do that within 3-day notice, and if it's an emergency, the mayor can call an emergency meeting if it's a severe situation. What are the roles of everybody at commission meetings? So first of all, what's the role of the chair? The chair is to preside over the group, to keep order. I'm on the wrong slide here. Vote and make motions or seconds, participate in discussions. Note, you don't have veto power here. The chair does not have any veto power or individual authority. You all just get one vote. That's tough. You're the chair, and you should get something for that, right? There you go. You got a gavel, and you get to hit the lights and have a few things that you get to do. The role of the commissioner is to vote or make second on motions, to participate in discussions. And as I said, you too don't have any special authority. You all have equal votes and equal authority. The role of the city staff at commission meetings is to write reports, publish the notices, ordinances, and arrange for recording secretary. She keeps the minutes, attends and participates in commission meetings, however, may not vote, and assists with reports or research. So she's your key to conducting your business and getting the information that you need to do so. There are other people who have roles at commission meetings from time to time. You typically don't have the city attorney here, but there might be some times when the city attorney may come to help advise you on some matters. Depends on what you're working on. And there is also a role for the audience at a commission meeting. Audience members are really here to learn and observe and hear, listen. With your guidance from the chair, you may allow the audience to participate if it's needed, or that's something that you want to have happen. and if it's directed by the city council to have a public forum or some kind of meeting where you're gathering community input. The role of the audience is to, if the chair and the commission so chooses, they can speak to the commission. They can, if they do that, they can limit the time that speakers have to present to you. You would ask them to sign up. One of the things that we ask of anyone who comes before the council or the commissions is to give their name and address for the record. And you can also set rules or guidelines. One of the things that the chair has a right to do is to ask someone to leave or quit speaking if they become unruly or disrespectful or noisy. So the role at commission during forums or hearings is to listen, to ask questions, and generally you don't respond or problem solve to someone who's at the podium asking you questions. You may collectively respond after you've heard all of the speakers. That's typically what the council does. But it's really a one-way for you to hear from the residents. With that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take questions about what I've talked about this evening, and also if you have any other training topics that you're interested in or would like staff to bring forward to you. We want you to be informed and make sure that you're following state law. But we also, if there's some training topics that other staff besides Audra can help with, or even if it's something that Audra could do, we're here as a resource. So if there's anything we can do to help you be a better commissioner, a better advocate for park and recreation, we're here to help you.
Any comments or questions? Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Oh,
So this is a hypothetical we've never run into, but let's say that you're taking public comments and you haven't really set up any rules to begin with because it's never really been a problem, but let's say someone doesn't want to stop talking. At what point, how do you handle that?
I think that collectively, before you have a public input period, that's something that you should be prepared for. For example, at council meetings, when we have public hearings, we limit each speaker to 3 minutes. And that's how we handle that. If you are, really it's up to the chair to decide whether you're going to allow public testimony or not. The chair may say to all of you, it looks like we have some people in the audience tonight, should we check in with them and see what they're here for? It's entirely up to you to make that decision.
But do you need to do that beforehand? Let's say, let's take some comment, and you're commenting, and they're going on and on and on.
Yeah.
Can you then say, well, we need to limit this?
I would say that you should have the policy, you should agree on what your policy is before you start opening it up to the public. So you might agree that, the council limits everyone to 3 minutes. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe there's a good reason to do that. Or if it's a new topic or something that you're interested in, you can always waive the 3-minute requirement as well. But it is a good idea for you to have that discussion ahead of time and sort of be prepared for that.
Okay.
maybe, Audra, that can be an item for us to discuss and set some guidelines. Not that we very often get people here, but I think, just in case,
Yeah.
we need to be prepared. I think that's, makes sense.
Sure.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that one of the council meetings, it was asked of me to look at how we could maybe make the commission appointment process more friendly and welcoming. And so I'm asking for input from you, because you've all interviewed, you've all been standing here at one point, some of you a longer time ago than others. Is there something about that process that we could do differently or better to make you feel better about how that interview process went?
I guess what are your, obviously the council has some parameters that they have to work under. I assume that everyone has to be, all of the interviews have to be public and
Yes.
on TV. That's kind of probably the least comfortable, not for somebody who's been here, but someone who is new and, It's kind of tough to get up knowing that you're on TV and whatnot, but I don't think that's something that's flexible.
Yeah,
right?
you know, that's interesting because that was one of the comments that people find that coming in here and standing in front of the podium and then having the council just shoot the questions to them is a little daunting or, you know, can be intimidating. One of the suggestions, I actually spoke with the Environmental Natural Resource Commission on Monday, and some of their thoughts were that, but before I go there, let me just address, we do have to have public meetings. So one, you know, immediately we think, well, we could just go in the Maplewood room and just have it be a more one-on-one kind of, you know, 1 to 5 conversation, more relaxed. But we can't because we have to telecast it. And so that's limiting. The other thought that I had was maybe it would be more inviting to have the person sit up at the DS. And I don't know if that would help or not. The cameras are rolling, and I guess if you're going to be on a commission, you need to get used to that, right? I think one of the things that the ENR brought up Monday night, which I thought was a really good idea, was to have Lois, our administrative assistant, who contacts everybody to make sure they're going to come on the interview night, to try to be more forthright about what's going to happen. For example, all of our city meetings are public, and all of our public meetings are cablecast. And so we just want you to know that you're going to be on camera. The council's going to ask you 5 questions, and you know it won't be too painful. It'll be about 10 minutes, but just to give them a heads up, to just kind of maybe help them feel a little more comfortable about being here. And I think the council does a really great job of making people feel welcome and appreciated for their efforts. You know, one of the things on the application is, you know, are you a Maplewood resident? There's certain things that you have to meet before you would be considered. But I think maybe just that little extra couple minutes when you're calling to check in with the applicants, you could just make them feel a little more comfortable by telling them what's going to happen. But that's a really, you're right, we are constrained by having the cameras running.
Because they are going to be joining a specific commission, might it be possible for one of the questioners to be from that commission?
I don't know. That would be a council decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
We can ask. We can put
but
that in
to-
our
you know,
findings.
We kind of know the holes and things that we're missing, and
Okay.
that we might be able to have some input
Yeah.
into what would help fill out our commission.
I'll put that in the report to the council that's for them to consider.
Might also be interesting, I don't know, give them at least one question where they know this one's coming, and they can go and think about it and be really ready for at least one. And maybe start with that one to get
Sure.
them going. Because, you know, to come in and you just have no idea where any of the questions are going to come from, that can be also daunting.
Yeah, that's, you know, everybody has a little bit different opinion about that, and we struggle with that even internally when we're doing interviews for our positions is, do you give them the questions ahead of time, or don't you? But you can argue both sides of that, I think. But I will pass that on to the council, and it is something that I think they would consider that, especially just one. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think especially if you're looking to make it more comfortable, that's an item, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, that's good, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or suggestions on how we might make people feel more at ease in our interview process? Otherwise, you all survived it, and you all handled it well, or you wouldn't be sitting up there, so that's good. Anything else? If not, I would just say thank you again for the work that you're doing on behalf of the city. You are a great group of people, and many of you have been involved in this for a while. And like I said before, the council and staff really appreciates the time that you invest in our community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Audra, the next item appears to be natural resources and open space update.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Tonight we have our Natural Resources Coordinator, Ginny Gaynor, here, and she's going to be giving you an update. We realized we had not done one for quite a while, to give you an update on the preserves and open space that we have throughout the city, and Jenny will get into it more, but just a reminder to people that Maplewood has 15 neighborhood preserves and several other natural areas throughout the city that we maintain, take care of, and it's quite intensive, and then there's a lot involved in it, and Jenny is our expert, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny, and she's going to be doing her presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. If we can have the computer, please. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you, give you an open space update. I'm going to cover several items. First is a little overview of the preserves. We'll talk a little about trails and parking, about active management at the preserves, other natural resource issues that we get involved with, and then I'll give you some highlights from the past year, what's going on this year, and then some future projects. I did drop off at each of your places a map with some of the open space sites, so as I'm mentioning things, you might want to check in with that if you're wondering where they are. So Maplewood has 15 neighborhood preserves, and the purpose of these sites is to preserve, protect, and enhance natural areas, but also to provide people with access to nature. 4 of the 15 preserves are also community preserves. So when we did the Park System Master Plan in 2015, we set up this new designation of community preserves because we found that some of our sites had a little bit more amenities, and so we really wanted to make a distinction between how much amenities we were going to let. We didn't want every site to have parking lots and extensive trail systems and things like that. We wanted some to remain in a very natural state. So the 4 community preserves have more amenities, and that's to support easier access for people, including places where we can more easily do programming through Maplewood Nature Center. And those sites are the Nature Center, which has a full building with bathrooms and exhibits and parking lot. Prairie Farm Preserve, as you know, that's the site of the Bruntrop Heritage Farm, which has full facilities. Gladstone Savannah is one of our community preserves, as is Fish Creek. And the Savannah and Fish Creek do not have on-site parking, but they do have asphalt trails. Several documents guide our management of the preserve, the comprehensive plan, the parks chapter, but also quite a bit of what we do is really formulated in the natural resources chapter. There's some information on the preserves in the Park System Master Plan. We have some basic open space guidelines. We do site analyses for each of our sites, and some of our sites have master plans or interim management plans. So a little bit on trails. So here's a list of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sites have paved asphalt trails. And Coleman Creek has just a short section of trail, but there's some additional footpath at that site. The Nature Center has lime rock trails that are ADA accessible. 3 of the sites, Maplewood, the Priory, and Trout Brook, have mowed trails. These trails have been graded, so they are good walking trails, but you could not take a wheelchair or a stroller on them. Joy Park, when I talk about the park, we have the preserve, which is north of Joy Boulevard or Joy Road, and that right now does not have any trails. There are, of course, wonderful trails on the south side of at the actual park, not the preserve, and that's part of the Lake Links Trail System. So Joy Park, Spoon Lake, and Carver, they have some footpaths, deer paths. People make their way through them, but they're not easy to access. And then there are no trails really at Fisher's Corner, Hidden Marsh, or Jim's Prairie. So what are our priorities for trails? Well, the city would like to have a full trail system at Spoon Lake, at Joy Park, and at Carver Preserve. And when I say Joy Park in this situation, I mean the preserve on the north side of the road. We do not have any well-maintained trails yet. We do want to add a few trail segments at the Priory, actually just improving the boardwalks there and improving that entrance. Prairie Farm, we want to do a little bit more of an asphalt connection, and Coleman Creek, we'd like to do a little bit more of a trail system. But there are 3 sites where we really do not want to put in trails: Jim's Prairie, Fisher's Corner, and Hidden Marsh. For parking lot, we have existing parking lots at Prairie Farm Preserve and at the Nature Center. On the bottom photo below, you're seeing the sustainable turf parking lot at the farm, and that's worked out really well for us. So in addition to the asphalt trail that you see in the top, there is overflow turf parking adjacent. We do need a parking lot at Fish Creek site. I often get calls, when are you putting a parking lot in? We just didn't have funding the first go-around when we put the trails in to actually do a parking lot. We would like to improve shoulder parking at the Priory Preserve, which is right on Larpenteur, and at Carver Preserve, it would be nice to improve a little the street parking as well. So since the beginning of the neighborhood preserves, the city has had a philosophy of actively managing its sites. And we often got the question early on, why are we managing? Can't we just let nature take its course? Can't we let it be? And the reason we can is because the sites are so small and they're so isolated, they can't function as ecosystems. And there's so many impacts on them. There's stormwater changes, there's invasive species coming in. We've removed natural elements like fire from them. So it's not a wilderness system, it's an urban preserve that we do find we need to manage. So what does management mean for us? It means evaluating the sites and developing a strategy, doing prescribed burn, and managing invasive species such as buckthorn or wild parsnip. We do selective tree removals on some of our grassland sites. We do mowing and cutting, herbicide treatment, seeding and planting, and on some sites we do full-scale restorations. So we have so many sites and possible projects we can do. We do need to prioritize them. And so we've looked at ecological quality. So we want to rank them by ecological quality. So we're making sure that things that are really important aren't being put to the bottom of the list. So several years ago, I did an ecological quality ranking for our sites. To do that, I looked at several features. How diverse was the native plant community? Basically, how many different types of native plants did they have on a site? Were there different plant communities? Was it just a woodland system, or was it a site that had woodlands, wetlands, and some grasslands? How healthy were those native plant communities? Were they pretty intact? What is the size? A larger site's going to be more important to us ecologically. Were they connected to other natural areas that would give them a larger context and more ecological benefit? Were there wetlands present? And what was the invasive species, how intensive was the invasive species pressure at that site? And we came up with an ecological ranking when I scored everything. And so really our tier 1 sites, sorry, this is difficult to read, but the tier 1 sites are Priory, Jim's Prairie, Joy Park, actually the park, not the preserve, Fish Creek, and the Nature Center. So these are like our #1 sites ecologically. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping up with our management of these sites first and foremost. And then the next tier is Maplewood, Beaver Creek, Prairie Farm, and Gladstone Savannah. And a lot of those sites, we've actually done prairie restorations on a lot of those sites. What's really interesting is several of our parks have really beautiful natural areas. So if you may have been to some of these at Joy Park, the south side of the road is really incredible. It's one of our best sites in the city with its wetlands and its woodlands. And the park is actually much better than the preserve, which is old farm fields that have grown over time. Wakefield has the lake, and the savanna there is really quite interesting. The woodland's quite degraded, but it's pretty interesting as well. And there's also a little historic cow tunnel tucked back there in the woodland that our History Commission is very interested in. City Hall, we consider our site a park, and it also has a very nice natural resources. Vista Hills has woodlands and wetlands. Nebraska Park has woodlands and wetlands. Hillside has woodlands. Roselawn is a pond and potential for restoration. There are other parks where we've done native plantings like Lions Park and Crestview Park. So it was really with the Park System Master Plan that we decided these are really important to not just focus on the preserves, but to also keep these natural areas in mind at parks and make sure the best of these are also pulled into the prioritization. So when we set priorities on what to work with, the way we typically do it is, number one, we want to protect and manage the highest quality areas. So those are those tier 1 sites. We want, and then the next level, we do early detection and rapid response for new invasive species. So what this means is there's buckthorn all over the city. We know our sites have it. We're on the watch for anything brand new coming in that we can get control of early. Because if we can put some resources into controlling that before it becomes a buckthorn problem, we're making much wiser use of our funds and our time. Next is to maintain previous projects. Next is to establish high-quality demonstrations at several sites. And then finally, everything else would be prioritized. So the way this works is, I had a call the other day from someone that she'd removed buckthorn in her backyard near Spoon Lake, so she was wondering if the city could start buckthorn removal at Spoon Lake. And it will cost us thousands and thousands of dollars, and the site is not up there in our list of priorities. So I had to tell her, we're not there yet. We've got all these other priorities ahead of Spoon Lake before we can get to your site. So in addition to managing the preserves, a lot of my work is also just managing natural resources citywide. And I'm not going to talk extensively about these, but that involves invasive species, not just at parks and preserves, but at city boulevards, trails, things like that. We get involved in managing trees for emerald ash borer, oak wilt. We're a Tree City USA, so we handle that, and also the new tree sale, which we can talk about a little bit more later. I will manage wildlife, including deer management. We get involved with stormwater management through the rain garden programs. We're looking at lakes, streams, and wetlands, pollinator issues, and sustainable landscaping. The Parks Department actually has a sustainable turf plan, and so that would be one thing that falls under sustainable landscaping for parks. A lot of the work I do is in collaboration with Maplewood Nature Center. They're side-by-side partners in our natural resources and our restoration programs. They handle our citizen monitoring programs for us. We have monitors at many of our neighborhood preserves. These are residents who walk the preserves regularly. They'll pick up a little litter when they see it, and they'll report to us any erosion, trail issues they're seeing, damage, vandalism. And they'll also do phenology, what's going on, what's blooming, what's anything interesting wildlife that they see. We have a bee monitoring program, frog monitoring. The frog monitoring is interesting. There are 4 frog routes throughout the city, not just at parks and preserves, but at all sorts of little wetlands. And then we have the invasive species, the early detection monitoring team. The Nature Center also is there for us as we do service learning and volunteer projects. So a lot of the work that's done at the preserves is done by volunteers and through service learning groups. And it's not just at the preserves, it's also at parks and at city facilities. And they'll do things like, on the bottom right, you're seeing them at Wakefield, at one of the rain gardens at Wakefield in spring. Century College kids were helping us do the spring cleanup for the rain garden. On the top right is another group from Century College that was doing some restoration at Maplewood Nature Center. So I'm going to go through some 2018 highlights with you. Anybody recognize this site? Yeah, this is Gladstone Savannah, and this was midsummer. It was really beautiful. Our gardeners got in the center plantings in really nice shape this year. So it's been a really fun project to work on for the last several years, and we celebrated this year there with our grand opening. One of the projects that got done in 2018 there was the interpretive trail. So we now have 8 interpretive signs out along the trail, and what I think is so unique about this interpretive trail is it's not just about natural resources, it's also about history. So there are 4 signs focused on history and 4 signs focused on natural resources, telling the story of the site. And this is an image from our grand opening, which was a lot of fun. It was wonderful being out there on a summer evening. And I don't know if everybody's gotten to see these yet, but we wanted a little interactive history piece in the playground. So this just went in late last fall. And it's just like bingo cubes that the kids will spin the cubes and they can make 3 different pictures that tell them a little bit about the history, about what was once upon a time at this site. Another highlight was Fish Creek. With the Nature Center, we held our first Bio Blitz, and that's where you get as many experts and volunteers together as you can, and in 24 hours, you identify as many species as you can. And so we focused on birds, and in the first hour and a half, they went out really early in the morning, like 6 a.m., and then they went back in near dusk and identified in that one day 63 different species of birds just at Fish Creek. 51 insect species and 162 plant species were identified that day. The trail there is getting tons of trail use. People love that trail, so it's been a really, really wonderful amenity for the city. This year I worked with the designer on interpretive sign for the site, and that's ready to install for this coming year. And we purchased benches last year, didn't get them in, but they'll go in this year, and that's thanks to donations from two residents from the family of Carolyn Peterson and from our site monitors down at Fish Creek, Marlene and Phil. We also had a Conservation Corps crew out there. We had 11 days. This was free labor for us through a grant, and they did a great job. They helped us make sure that the trees that had been planted there were in good shape. They were mulching the trees, they were caging them from deer, and they did some brush cutting and things like that. Prairie Farm, we were really busy out, our contractor was very busy out there this past year. We have a grant that has run from 2016 and that ends this June, and it was to enhance pollinator habitat out at the farm. 7 acres were in pretty good condition, and we're just enhancing them with some weed management, but we're doing a complete restoration on about 12 acres. And so this means we did some selective removal of trees and brush. Then we prepped the site, which included 3 herbicide sprayings, mowing and burning, and late in fall, we seeded. And this year, the last step of this project is to plant some plugs to really increase pollinator habitat. And here's just a picture of it. It's hard to see in here, but if we had a better picture, there's a lot of diversity. This is one of the good areas that we were helping to become even better. And I wanted to mention Wakefield Savannah. This wasn't a big project, but it was a really fun and rewarding project. In the upper right-hand corner of your screen, that's a picture from, I don't know, the 50s or 60s. And it's on the north side of the lake, looking to the east, okay? So the Savannah is on the east, right along Prosperity. And it's hard to see from the picture, but look how open it is. The trees have really moved in. And so that's the type of Savannah feeling that we're going, that is our goal, to get that Savannah back in shape. So the image on the bottom right, that's taken from somewhere near Prosperity, of the beautiful structure of the oak savanna right after a burn. We did it after buckthorn removal in fall 2017. We did a prescribed burn last spring. And then this past fall, we did a little bit more brush cutting, and we had some volunteers out there collecting seed at the Savannah. So that's really exciting to get the Savannah in shape. We're hoping someday that we can continue south and get that woodland in shape. I think I was here last year talking about Joy Park Spent Lime Basin. And so on the right you see the watershed that feeds into Silver Lake. And we had the opportunity through grants to work with our watershed district, and they are putting in the Spent Lime Basin. And what's so exciting about this one, about 50% of the runoff from this watershed will go through this basin, so we'll be able to capture quite a bit of the pollutants that are coming into Silver Lake. And the basin is actually on the preserve land. So they installed it late last fall, and the only thing left on that project then is adding some trees and shrubs. And we do consider our City Hall campus a park, and this year some of the fun projects were the creation of 3 rain gardens, a piece of public art. I don't know if anyone got a chance to see that in the winter. It was really beautiful with the snow on it. And then we also did some shoreline restoration to enhance the north side of the pond, and that's a group from Century College doing that restoration with us. So what's up for this year? At Fish Creek, we're going to install those benches. On the upper right of your screen, those are the two, we've got two large signs going in side by side, and they should be a lot of fun. They're entry signs, orienting people to the preserve and giving them a little bit of interpretive information on it. And we do have a Conservation Corps crew again this year to help maintain plantings. At Joy Park, they'll complete the spent lime basin, and then we have an opportunity to work with the county. There's some funding for aquatic invasive species, and so at the boat launch, we'd like to improve the boat launch with better signage for people that are boating to clean off their boats. And a lot of times what they've been doing in the county is putting up better signage, marking in the parking area as an area where people can pull their trailers off to clean their boats, and then providing some compost type area where they can put the matter that they take off their boats. So we're hoping that project will go through. At the farm, we're going to finish the restoration, and then we're going to start our management of it. After we do a prairie seeding, we have to, the first year and a half to 2 years, do some mowing management of that whole area. We do hope to get a prescribed burns in at a few sites, and we've got a very small grant to do some spot treatments for some specific, some very specific invasive species like wild parsnip. We do have funding for open space in the CIP from 2019, for the next 5 years or so. And when you see, occasionally we'll have 150,000 or 250. Those are for trail projects. Those are big trail, especially if we're doing asphalt. But any kind of trail is pretty expensive. So some of the priorities for the use of our CIP is continued restoration at the Priory, and then improving the boardwalks and the sitting areas at the Priory, installing sitting area at the Priory. Other restoration projects include Jim's Prairie and other sites. For trails, the priorities are Spoon Lake and Joy Park, and a short segment at Prairie Farm. There's also in the CIP Fish Creek money for Fish Creek, and that was put in specifically for parking lot. But anything at Fish Creek we would hope would be in partnership with Ramsey County. And then I think in your packet you had an excerpt from the Natural Resources chapter of the Comprehensive Plan. And that's a really good rundown of natural resources and the priorities, especially the action items are, I think, a really nice list guiding us into the future on some of the important work that we need to be doing. And with that, I'm going to leave you with this image of the restoration at Fish Creek. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Fish Creek isn't a preserve. I'm a little,
Okay, so the map you have in front of you was done like 15, 18 years ago, before we had Fish Creek. So it is you can call it a preserve. Was it ever officially named a neighborhood preserve? It's at a site we acquired after a lot of the work was done with the preserve. So we call it a preserve. We say it's part of the preserve system. We used to say we had 14 preserves. Now we say we have 15 preserves.
Excuse me, Chair. I had a question about the preserves. Do we have a adopt a preserve like we do our parks?
Yes. We do that through the Nature Center's Preserve Monitoring Program, and so our monitors sign up, and the requirement is that they walk at least once a month, and they'll send us information on what they actually, it's not just focused on litter pickup. For them, it's focused also on identifying any issues at the preserve, but also doing some phenology, telling us what's blooming, what animals they're seeing, and things like that. And so it's been a really wonderful program. I think at least half of our preserves have monitors, if not more.
Anyone else have comments? Or?
Yeah, what are some of the new invasive species we have to worry about?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, I wish I should bring Carol back here to talk to you, and she'll talk to you for 3, 4, 5 hours. So, the worst things that we're seeing at our natural areas here, we do have wild parsnip that we've been working on some areas, and we're so concerned about that because some people will have a bad reaction to that if they touch it. And so that's one that we are really dedicated to finding it, and as soon as we see it, trying to get on the management to eradicate that one. Japanese hedge parsley has come in. Oriental bittersweet, which looks like our native bittersweet, which is, you might have seen in Christmas decorations, which have just beautiful orange, little tiny orange heart flowers. It's the seed, it's actually the fruit. There's some brand new ones. Oh gosh, I'm off the top of my head, I'm blanking out, but really our focus in the city, so the things we know we have here that we're working hard on are wild parsnip, tansy, Oriental bittersweet, we just have a little bit of that. Those are some of the key things. Things like buckthorn and garlic mustard are so widespread, we have a different strategy in dealing with those.
I just have a question. You were saying the one neighbor was concerned about the one by Spoon Lake. Do we give neighbors suggestions or anything to help them out?
So what we do say, and not everybody wants to hear this, but I do say if you have a neighborhood group that wants to get together and do something, the city will try to support you with educate. We would go out and do a management plan with them that would identify what sites are you allowed to work on our public property, and we take a little control of it, because once we had a call, someone had a bobcat on one of our city natural areas, and he was cutting down all the buckthorn because the nature center told him to. Well, the nature center was advocating buckthorn removal, but they were not telling people to get on their bobcats and go tearing through the woods. So we go out and we meet with the resident, and we do a management plan that identifies, here's the area you can work in, here's the method you can use, because we don't do a lot of pulling anymore because of soil disruption. And then we have issues with, we don't want people using chainsaws on sites, so we identify treatments and chemicals that can be used. And then if it's a neighborhood group, we'll get together with them and teach them the identification basics and demonstrate how to do the cut and treat method. So we've done that at a couple different sites. We did it at Nebraska Park a few years ago. And so we try to support them in that way. It's not something you want to hear, but if you've got a project that's going to cost thousands of dollars to use, we really have to have a good system of prioritization.
Right. Thank you.
I have a question. I just wanted to, do you have any data or information about visitation in the preserves? Or is there any way of finding out anything about that, or?
Like how many people visit?
Yes.
No, we don't. I mean, you could potentially put trail cams up at the, at the entrances and have someone go, watch the tape and count, but we do not really know.
Because if there was any way to, I know you were talking earlier on about the parking situations and how much parking would be needed in a particular area, or. So
I think we really haven't felt the pressure, except at Fish Creek right now, it's off-road parking, so you can usually park unless you have some mobility issues. I had a call from someone that said, I really need a handicap stall there to get out, because sometimes there's too many cars. And I thought, well, we can't really offer that until we actually do a real parking lot. So I haven't had complaints about street parking usually, because a lot of the preserves are, they're really intended to be, most of them, neighborhood preserves and not necessarily drawing people from afar. But they're welcome, of course. Everybody's welcome, of course.
So street parking hasn't been a problem then?
No, we haven't had any, I haven't seen any issues with that at Gladstone Savannah, where we've got bump outs. The Priory along Larpenteur, I haven't seen any problem. We get a lot of our use at the Priory is from the neighborhood, and they're coming in the back neighborhood, the southern neighborhood entrances. I haven't really heard complaints about it, except that one at Fish Creek.
Okay.
And I think when we've got a handicap, when we have an ADA trail that's asphalt, we need to be sensitive to the parking issue.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. My goodness. You guys really do a lot. It's a very impressive presentation. Thanks for the update.
We're happy that the city supported this all these years, because we thought Maplewood was way ahead in some of this. So it's really been a wonderful for
us.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And then, if I may, just before I leave, I do want to announce our tree sale, and Audra's going to put a announcement up on the overhead. So I don't know how many of you know, but Maplewood, through our city council, is really promoting a tree sale. We switched from a tree rebate that we used to have to actually doing an annual tree sale. And so I encourage people to plant trees. With EAB now in Maplewood, we really want to get going on tree planting on both public and private lands. And so if you're interested in purchasing a tree, they're only $40. There's about 7-8 different species you can choose from. The city's partnering with Tree Trust on this. And if you go to the city website, right on our front page on one of the slides there, you'll have a link to the tree sale, and it's you can order online, or there are ordering forms at City Hall and at the Nature Center and at Public Works. Thank you.
And Jenny, as long as we have you here, and I think there's a tie-in, I was going to update them on the Arbor Day, but if I pull the flyer up, would you like to talk about Arbor Day?
Thank you. So our Nature Center is doing our Arbor Day event. The City Council has proclaimed May 4th as Arbor Day in Maplewood. So we hope the Park Commission will come and join us for the fun event that the naturalists have planned. It's going to be a little bit open house style. It's May 4th from, if I'm getting it correct. Computer, yeah, overhead or computer? Computer.
We're making them work in the control room. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a lot of fun planned. So it's it's free for families and adults. There will be live raptors there. We have the tree quest. We're encouraging people to complete the tree quest and win a prize. We'll have a master gardener on hand to go through how to plant a tree. It's surprising, but every few years, the advice on how to properly plant a tree from the U of M changes. So come on out and learn about the box cut method. And Smokey Bear is going to be there, so come and say hi to Smokey. There will be opportunities to build a bird feeder and enter drawings for a gift certificate to purchase a tree. So we hope people will come out, free drop-in event, May 4th from 1 until 3.
Thank you very much, Jenny.
Okay, moving along on our agenda, any unfinished business?
Oh, no, there is not.
Okay.
Sorry.
And I don't see anyone for visitor presentation. The commission presentations, Audra, do you want to talk about the annual report?
Yep, Chair, members of the commission. Actually, I was going to turn that over to the chair. We did make the changes, and there is one final chance to look in your packet at the annual report. And I refer to Dorothy to just have you guys look it over. And it should be the changes that we talked about. It's been a different set at the last 2 meetings. Kind of hope to catch everybody at one, and unfortunately, Kimmy wasn't able to make it, but just take one more look at it, and then, go ahead, Dorothy.
We have Brian Smith as a city council liaison. Do we need to update that?
Yeah, we will change that.
Okay.
Well, actually, Chair, let me correct myself. This is 2018 report, so he was the liaison.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I had to think for a second, but yep. So that's good to go.
Any other comments or changes, or are we ready to go on it?
Yep, there's no motion. It was just a final glance at it, and then I was
Okay.
going to have you talk about what you'll be doing next Monday.
I'm going to be handing this out. There's going to be overheads. Will there be just the three of them like this, or?
It'll be the annual report as it's written, and then you'll just be getting up in front of council at the podium and just talking about the highlights that, from the report. You don't have to read it word for word, but you'll just be presenting the annual report. You'll be representing the commission and telling council about all the great things that you did last year.
Okay. All righty.
And then I believe we may have one more commissioner presentation.
So I am doing a project right now for a grade schooler, and I have when we were younger, it was called Flat Stanley, but they're naming it after the child that's doing it. So this is Flat Ethan, and I have to take him around with me and have pictures taken of what Flat Ethan has done. So we'd like to get a picture of Flat Ethan with the council.
So should we gather around
Yeah, I
you?
guess we'll gather and then.
Ellie.
Do you want to take it and just send it to me? That'll be fine, okay.
Everybody in?
I think so. Uh-oh.
Say Flat Stanley.
That's
Stanley.
Thank you.
Are there any other commissioner?
So quick.
Are there any other commissioner presentations?
If I could, Chair, members of the commission, just to add to the Flat Stanley thing, it may seem like maybe a silly thing to do, but my kids all did that in school, and it's really cool because Flat Stanley gets sent all over the world, and they get to talk about geography, and the kids just love to see all the places Flat Stanley's been and where he's been at work, so thank you for doing that.
Staff presentations.
Okay, Chair, members of the commission, I will just continue with the programming updates. Ginny, I just figured it made sense for her to talk about Arbor Day since she was talking about the tree sale, but I have a few for you as well. If I could have the computer, please. And we have an event coming up this Friday, so just in a couple of days. We do these events called Jam the Gym. And I think they're kind of a lesser-known event that we do, but they're a really great thing. We do them at the community gyms, and this one will be at Carver Community Gym. And it's from 6 to 8 Friday night. Parents don't have to stay, so it's $5 a child. So for $5, you can drop your child off, go out and shop, go out to eat, and our staff entertain the kids. They have the bounce castle, they play floor hockey, volleyball, all kinds of different games, and the police and fire department are joining us for this one, so they're going to be there to play with the kids and have fun, so we're encouraging everyone to come and join us. It should be a really good time. Any questions about?
Are there age restrictions? Oh, Grace, Kate.
Yep, it's school
K5,
age. Yep,
okay.
it's I mean, they're not going to turn someone over if there's a older brother or sister there, or
Okay.
it's just, you have to be at least kindergarten age, and if there's a smaller child that wants to stay and a parent wants to stay, they can. But it's just geared toward letting the kids come have fun and hang out, and they'll get to hang out with some, maybe play basketball against some firefighters and some police officers, and floor hockey with us, and jump in the castle and have a really good time. The computer again, please. And I could have had Ginny talk about this one too, because I know she's involved in this, but there is beginning bird identification classes are coming up. And one thing the Nature Center's been doing a lot more of is the adult education classes, and this program is, they have a longtime bird enthusiast, Chase Davies, I believe, and Connie, who is a naturalist at the Nature Center, and she loves birds. She's so passionate about it. They're going to be teaching classes, and they'll be Wednesdays and Saturday mornings, and you still have time to sign up. It's $60 a person, but it's a whole series, and they wanted people to register by March 20th, but they're still taking some registrations. So if you're interested, you can go to our website, or you can call 651-249-2170, register over the phone, and it should be a really interesting program. And then I briefly wanted to talk to all of you about the All Parks cleanup, and I do have the flyer in your packet, and I will stick it on the overhead quick too. So again, thank you in the booth. If I could have the overhead. We're going all over the place today. Just the overhead. Thank you very much. You all see that? Let's do it this way. That's good. And this is actually coming from you. I've put it out there, but this is our Parks and Recreation Commission's annual spring cleanup. And in years past, we've just had pickup at the community center down in the hallway there. I handed out bags, and several of you have donated your time in the morning and come and handed out bags and gloves and treats for people who sign up to clean the parks. This year, we are going to be operating out of the new Wakefield building, so we're going to have everything set up there. So we're excited about that. Hopefully, it's a nice day. We can even be out on the patio. And it's just a great opportunity for you to get together with coworkers, friends, family, or by yourself and just help beautify Maplewood Parks. So if you're interested, please sign up. You don't have to sign up, but if you let me know ahead of time, you can call me at 651-249-2125, or my email address is on the screen as well. And let me know what park you're interested in. I'll mark you down. And if you just decide that day you want to come clean up a park, you can come to the new Wakefield building between 8 and 10. Let me know you want to do a park. I'll assign you one that needs some help, and away we'll go. So, and again, the commission, if any or all of you would love to come and kick off the day from 8 to 10, we'd love to have you there.
I had a quick question, Chair.
Yes.
For Audra, with the All Parks cleanup, is there any messaging you do to the local schools for them to possibly participate, or?
Sure, Chair, members of the commission. We put any of our opportunities like this, we'll put them on the peach jar, site, because we can't give direct flyers, but we also reach out to our sports teams and, and any of our soccer club and that kind of thing. And so if they're potentially interested in coming as a team, in fact, last year we had a whole private soccer club come and clean up 2 parks, and it was fantastic, and they all got their players and parents, and it was really great. So we're always looking for different groups that want to come in, and yeah, having kids is great and highly encouraged, and a lot of the people who do come, they come with their kids, so. Any other questions about the cleanup? Okay. And moving on to something fun I have for you, and it'll be the computer screen. We just did another drone flyover of the Wakefield Park project. It was every time we tried to have the drone fly, then the weather wasn't good or it was too windy or that kind of thing, but we were able to get weather. We wanted to get the ice rink before it melted and everything was gone, so I have a couple of videos to show you. And then a still picture, just so you can see. This was just a week ago, so. I'll show those first. There's one that you can see.
Nice, that's beautiful.
Wanted to get you to see the ice, and this is the magic of the drone just flying over.
Is this one public yet?
Pardon?
Is it on YouTube yet?
I don't know if it's on YouTube. We posted one of these videos on our Facebook page this afternoon.
Okay.
So this is the one heading from the north end of the park, so when it's heading over the rink then, and you saw the shelters off in the corner. A lot of everything's still covered in the snow, but you'll go over the building and you can just kind of see the flow back to the patio then, and with the lake behind, so. It's just so cool to get this vantage point that you can't get anywhere else. That'll be where the rain garden is down there, where you see the black half circle there. And then you can see some brave souls were walking out on the ice. Okay. That's that one. And then, And this is just coming then from the south end by the lake and then heading back toward Frost Avenue. So you can see the patio in the front of the building. It's hard to get a idea of what that rink, the size of it, what it really looks like when you're standing on the ground, but when you see it in,
Bob, it's big. Now, is the building open?
we're using it currently for dance classes. And we've got like the city council retreats there. The League of Women Voters is having a meeting there. And so we have some things set up that but it's not open for rentals quite yet, but.
I have a question about we were talking about potentially treating a tree on that property, but I also understand that if it gets cold enough, that it kills the emerald ash borers. And I think that we got down there a couple of times this year, and I guess, does that impact, what are your thoughts on that?
I am not the expert on whether it was cold enough for any of that to happen. I think it can slow down. I have heard that as well. Again, we should have got Jenny before she left, but we still are planning to bring that forward to council, that particular, just so get that one, put into the system that we could treat it and put that before council this spring. So if we do need to treat it in the event we do, then we've already got that option covered. And because that's what we'll have to do with the way the ordinance is come forward and treat trees. And we're looking at changing the ordinance to maybe say certain trees that Parks Commission and Parks and Recreation Department deem savable, that we could just do that without having to go back further. But that'll be something initially we'll have to go back to council to talk about. So.
I heard about the cold killing off the bugs and stuff too. How will we know if the cold did the job before they start the expensive treatment?
You won't know, and we wouldn't start treating the tree, I don't believe. I don't want to speak out of turn and say it wrong, but I don't think you can guarantee that something didn't happen. But I can talk to Ginny a little bit more about that, and I can get back to you at the next meeting. I just want to talk to the experts
I
first.
remember hearing that too.
Okay. And then I have, it's kind of cool I have the background video playing. And then there was just a final photo to leave you with. Just kind of everything way up there. So it shows you the parking lot, the rink, the building. We can see the shelters off to the distance and the trail work so far. And then they'll be finishing up all that outside work that we didn't get done when November came brutally and cold and early, and we'll be finishing that up and looking at May 1st to start doing the rest of that grading and asphalt work, and the goal is to be done by the end of May with all that outside other stuff. But the building is all but ready to go. They're going to be doing the outside brickwork on the fireplace this next week because the weather is looking great for that, and a few other things. If you can see at the very top of the building in the front, the Louvre is that it was a piece they were waiting for, and it was special ordered, and it was taking forever, and now it's supposed to hopefully be installed on Monday, so crossing fingers, so that will be finished up. Any other questions about the building? Okay, well then that's all I have for updates.
Any other words of wisdom from the commission members? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thanks for doing your picture with me, guys.
Yeah.